Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator, the Maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael of the tribe of Dan of the nation of Israel. In this particular presentation, brothers and sisters, we do not intend for it to be long. This is due to the fact, brothers and sisters, that some people present information, and while Danitepublications is not based upon a debate matter, we definitely want to help set truth back in the earth concerning what has been stated and what has been happening, brothers and sisters, in this particular case. So we ask you all to get your pens, your pads, your paper, and to take notes. This, brothers and sisters, is on the channel, Mordeh Yeshaya History Lessons, Mordeh Yeshaya Torah Lessons, as well, brothers and sisters, as the Facebook page, Yeshaya Author Danite, for those who are interested. So let us, brothers and sisters, without any further ado, get into this particular matter that we're talking about at hand, if we will. We hope and pray, brothers and sisters, that everybody is well and will be better. For those who are in attendance, brothers and sisters, if you are able to and care to, and if you hear me well, I ask you, brothers and sisters, to please press the number 4. Asking you please to press the number 4 if you are in good spirits and you hear me well in this particular case. So, without, brothers and sisters, any further ado, we are going to pull up the slide in this particular case. Again, this is on the platforms Mordeh Yeshaya Torah Lessons, as well, brothers and sisters, as Mordeh Yeshaya History Lessons, as well, brothers and sisters, as the Facebook page Yeshaya Author Danite. So let us get started in this particular matter. Thank you all for that. We call this one here, the Bible speaks of the Diaspora. Who told you to make a chart? Now, while, brothers and sisters, this is not intended to offend, to disrespect, or anything of that sort. It has been different charts that have gone around among Israel. Some of them have the tribe of Dan, some of them don't have the tribe of Dan, brothers and sisters, in that case. And what we care to do, nonetheless, brothers and sisters, is to get into this particular matter. We're not going to, brothers and sisters, focus on the tribe of Dan or Dan in this particular matter. But what we will do, brothers and sisters, is let this book speak, as the saying goes. That's something that we care to do for reference purposes. So, as is the matter with this particular case, if we will, we definitely hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. What do we mean when we say that, brothers and sisters? Is this: some people may be upset, some people may be mad, some people may be frustrated, some people may not be. But what we intend to do, nonetheless, brothers and sisters, is bring this out for edification purposes. Thank you all for that. So let us look at this and get started. Giving honor to the Most High. Welcome to Danitepublications. Agenda, introduction. We at Danitepublications first want to give honor to the Most High. In this presentation, we will speak on the diaspora of the Israelites / the Hebrews. This is from the Bible itself. 1 Kings chapter 15, verse 20, and reads on this wise. And Ben-Hadad hearkened unto King Asa and sent the captains of his armies against the cities of Israel. It smote Ijon and Dan and Abel Beth Ma'akah and all Kinnerot, and it says with all the tribe of Naphtali. So, brothers and sisters, when you find people saying that the first tribe essentially that was taken into captivity was the tribe of Naphtali, that's why you see that in that particular case. So, what do we, in light of that, brothers and sisters, intend to bring out for reference purposes? There are 12 tribes in Israel, for those who do know. You have from Reuben, Simeon, Levi or Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. And Naphtali, brothers and sisters, as we see there, is the sixth of the 12 tribes of Israel. He was, brothers and sisters, the biological son of a woman by the name of Bilhah, but was by default, because of who she was and being a servant to Raquel, her son in that particular case, because Raquel was barren. So, brothers and sisters, these are things we care to point out for reference purposes. All right. Now, when we speak upon the diaspora of the Israelites, now Asa was a king of Judah, brothers and sisters, and we're going to talk about that later on in this presentation. So the first tribe of the 12 tribes, as we're pointing out, to be taken as captive as the breakdown of Israel sadly happens, was the tribe of Naphtali. Now it says, brothers and sisters, too, and smote Ijon and Dan and Abel Beth Ma'akah. Now, the tribe of Dan that was in the north, there were two lands that the tribe of Dan had when you go, brothers and sisters, in Joshua chapter 19 in the scriptures. Now, the tribe of Dan and the tribe of Naphtali, they were defeated, but they weren't to the point of being destroyed as if destroyed off the face of the earth. So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we care to point out for reference purposes. In order geographically for the Assyrians to get into where the Israelites were, unless they went around through the matter of the eastern side of the land, going as you go in the tribes on the east side of the Jordan, they would have had to come south and thus run into first the tribe of Dan and Naphtali. All right, for those who know the geography, we can point that out in a future presentation. Thank you for that. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. 2 Kings chapter 10, verse 32. And it says this: in those days, the Most High Yah began to cut Israel short, and Hazael smote them and all the borders of Israel, from the Jordan eastward, all the land of Gilead and the Gadites, the Reubenites and the Manassites, from Aroer, which is by the valley of Arnon, even Gilad and Bashan. Now, what do we want to point out with the Hebrew we see there on the bottom? All right, and that's this highlighter. This right here in Hebrew says Mizrach, and I want to color code it, if we will, right? And in the black it says Ha Shemesh. What do we want to point out in that case? All right. We're going to do this again so it shows a little better, right? Now, don't know why it's showing like that. With it showing like that, so what we're going to do is erase that, and we're going to, brothers and sisters, just highlight, but with a different color. Sorry about that, if we will, right? Now let's look. The part that you see in the yellow, that says Mizrach, all right? Now the word Zarak, when you drop off the mem, it means, brothers and sisters, correct me if I am wrong, to shine, or, brothers and sisters, eastward, from the shining of, or from the light of, or from the glow of Hashemesh. We already know, brothers and sisters, that Shemesh, brothers and sisters, essentially means sun. Now, by that, in that case, what we're talking about is the sun, the S-U-N, all right, for reference purposes. So, what do we and can we care to bring out in that case? We're talking, brothers and sisters, about the matter. Just want to pull this up on this particular platform. All right, Shalom, my brother Yirmiyahu. In that case, thank you for that. So I wanted to show my phone on both platforms. Sorry about that little interference with that. So what are we pointing out, brothers and sisters, is this. Shemesh is generally understood as the sun in the sky. Nonetheless, the other word for sun, brothers and sisters, when we get into it, is the word Hama. You see that in the book of Isaiah. But what do I want to emphasize on from the shining of the ray of the glowing of the illumination of the sun is this? It means eastward. So when we look, brothers and sisters, over here and we see the word eastward, that's what we're talking about. So we're in the Western Hemisphere. So that's why we are, in many cases, a day later or hours later than the lands in the East. You understand? Do you know that there are places while we are speaking at 8:25 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that are in the East where Shabbat is now over, where we have just entered it tonight? There are some that's ending it tonight because of the location of the land where one is at. So just want to point that out, if we will, for reference purposes. We hoping and praying that, again, that everybody is well and will be better. If I can be heard well and people are in good spirits, I do ask that people type the number 4. Thank you for that, family, in that particular case. All right, let's continue in this matter. Second Kings chapter 15, verse 29. In those days, it says, pardon me, in the days of Pekah, king of Israel, came Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and he took Ijon and Abel-Beth-Maacah, and Yanoah, and Kadesh, and Hazor, and Gilead, and Galilee, all the land of Naphtali, and carried them captive to Assyria. So what are we pointing out in this, brothers and sisters, in this case, when it says what in the days of Pekah, king of Israel? Pekah was one of the kings we're going to talk about later that ruled in the northern tribes of Israel. And as such, sadly, when the Israelite kingdom began to fall is where we begin to see this recorded. So what do we want to point out? We pointed out earlier that in the 1 Kings 15:20, Ben-Hadad listening to King Asa. That's when both kingdoms were still strong in 1 Kings. Now, by the time we get to 2 Kings 10, we see in those days the Most High began to cut Israel short. Israel began to have less and less prestige, if we will. Brothers and sisters, goes on to say. Now we get to 2 Kings 15, it says in the days of Pekah, king of Israel, which is some decades or so after the situation that we read of in 1 Kings chapter 15, right? We pointed out about the tribe of Naphtali before being taken captive. So we want to emphasize that all of the tribe was not taken captive at that time in 1 Kings, because we still see them in 2 Kings. So what is the point in this when we start talking about the Bible speaks of the diaspora? Meaning, brothers and sisters, that the Bible speaks of the diaspora of the Israelites. All right? This is something we care to point out in that case. And it goes on to say, brothers and sisters, this. 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 1 through verse 6. In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, began Hosea the son of Elah to reign in Samaria over Israel, and he reigned 9 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of Yah, yet not as the kings of Israel that were before him. Against him came up Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, and Hosea became his servant and brought him presents. So what are we pointing out? The matter of giving presents and being one servant means that you have been subjugated. Did you know that, brothers and sisters? That is something we care to point out, brothers and sisters, for reference purposes. Let's continue. And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hosea, for he had sent messengers to So, king of Egypt, and offered no present to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. Therefore, the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison. So, brothers and sisters, when it says, we want to point out here, if we will, right, with the laser pointer, when it says against him, meaning against Hosea, came up Shalmaneser, the king of Assyria, and Hosea became his servant and brought him presents. So one, in this case, Hosea was actually, with today's terminology, we'll call subjugated. And the king of Syria found conspiracy in Hoshea, for he, Hoshea, had sent messengers to So, king of Egypt. What are we pointing out? That Israel and Egypt, at a certain point, certainly after the Exodus, was close in business in one way or the other. Now, this So, king of Egypt, brothers and sisters, we're going to show you and point out, was an actual Ethiopian ruler that was ruling in Egypt. And what the Egyptian terminology and time frame, I must say, sorry, not terminology, but timeline, is what you call the Dynasty 25, or what they like to, I guess, being sarcastic, call what? The Black Pharaohs, even though all the pharaohs were black until Alexander. But what we want to point out in this particular case here is that these were actual Nubian / Cushites / Ethiopians that was ruling in Egypt at this particular time. So when it says So, king of Egypt, it is actually talking about a man named Shabaka. And that's something we care to point out, that ruled after the timing of Payi of Dynasty 25 of Egypt, and offered no present to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. So in today's terminology, this present is what you call tribute, year by year. What do we do in America with that? Every year you got to do what? File your taxes. Not to get too personal, but H&R Block just reached out to me. Remember, tax time due, that kind of spirit. So it's the same kind of subjugation, and I don't mean to sit there and bring something sad or bad. That was happening then, that's happening now in that particular case. All right? Shalom, my brother Jared. Shalom, my brother Yirmiyahu. And shalom to everybody in the chat. Thank you for that. It goes on to say, and year by year, therefore the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison. Then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land and went to Samaria and besieged it 3 years. Now, the 3 years in time frame that people talk about is in the calendar count of 725 to 722. Some might say 724 to 721, but most say 725 to 722 BCE. In the 90th of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and away into Assyria and placed them in Halah and in Abor on the river of Gozan and in the cities of the Medes. So it talks about, brothers and sisters, that Israel, nicknamed, if you will, Ephraim as a kingdom, will be taken by a strong east wind when you go into the book of Hosea when Israel was still a kingdom. So this strong east wind is why you find, perhaps here, brothers and sisters, when it gets into the matter of the king of Assyria took Samaria, took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria. These becomes important because when I ask in subparts about why do people sit there and feel they have, say, permission to make a chart, where does that come from? You have to sit there and include the things that happened with Israel and where Israel was scattered, and that the scriptures itself speaks on the diaspora of such. All right, let's continue. Thank you for that. 2 Kings chapter 25, 1 through 12. And it came to pass in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, in the 10th day of the month, that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came, he and all his army, against Jerusalem and encamped against it. And they built forts against it round about. So the city was besieged unto the 11th year of King Zedekiah. On the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine was sore in the city, so that there was no bread for the people of the land. Then a breach was made in the city, and all the men of war fled by night by the way of the gate between the two walls, which is by the king's garden. Now the Chaldeans were against the city round about, and the king went by the way of the Arabah. But the army of the Chaldeans pursued after the king and overtook him in the plains of Jericho, and all his army was scattered from him. So what happened in this particular case, brothers and sisters? You had to where some decades, over a century later, after the northern kingdom of Israel fell, we see here about the southern kingdom of Judah falling. Zedekiah is the last king of Judah, brothers and sisters. And that's something, too, that we care to point out for reference purposes. Zedekiah was the son of Josiah and the brother of Jehoiakim, but the uncle of Jehoiachin, who reigned before him. All right? So just want to point that out for reference purposes. It goes to say that he fled from Jerusalem went up the way of the Araba and went over into the land of Jericho. Jericho, we remember from Joshua chapter 3 in the Bible, that is, brothers and sisters, the first Israelite city after the Israelites crossed the Jordan that they sat there and went into and dedicated. So let's continue on in this particular case. Then they took the king and carried him up unto the king of Babylon to Riblah, and they gave judgment upon him. Now, brothers and sisters, what do we too want to point out here, if we will, when it says the king of Babylon to Riblah? Riblah is north of the land of Israel. But for those who know the geography, the king of Babylon, Babylon is east of the land of Israel. So what happened, brothers and sisters, between the time we see of people such as here, and here we see, brothers and sisters, the king of Babylon. What happened between and time frame in history between 2 Kings 17 and 2 Kings 25 becomes very important, because we begin to see how the kingdoms of the world fit in to the Israelite history and how the Israelites fit into the world history. What are we pointing out, brothers and sisters, in that manner? Assyria fell to Babylon in between the time frame between that. You ever heard of the battle called Carchemish? Some have stated, brothers and sisters, as I did, inside the presentation called From Jerusalem to the Hood, volume or part 1 through 6, which is part of the playlist on the channel, Mordecai Yeshaya History Lessons 2. In that, the Battle of Carchemish, which happened in the 7th century BCE, when you get into that, brothers and sisters, that is talking about what happened between the Babylonians and the Assyrians. The Egyptians attempted to help the Assyrians, but as 2 Kings 24 points out, it wasn't successful. So we want to show how all of this ties into what we're talking about. Let's continue on. Thank you for the time, brothers and sisters. It goes on to say this. And they slew the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes, and put out the eyes of Zedekiah, and bound him in fetters, and carried him to Babylon. Now, mind you, Zedekiah, king of Judah, was 32 years old at the time when he was taken captive, brothers and sisters. Goes on to say, Zedekiah, and bound him in fetters, and carried him to Babylon. We know fetters is like chains, if you will, all right, as a prisoner. Now, in the 5th month, on the 7th day of the month, was the 19th year of the king of Babylon, of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, a servant of the king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem. And he burnt the house of Yah and the king's house, and all the houses of Jerusalem, even every great man's house, burnt he with fire. And all the army of the Chaldeans that were with the captain of the guard broke down the walls of Jerusalem round about. Now, brothers and sisters, the prophet that was living during that time was Jeremiah. When you go in your own time and read Jeremiah chapter 1, it talks about how the kings will sit there and everyone will have their entrance at the gate of Jerusalem to besiege it. So that prophecy, a sad one, did come to pass in what we see here in 2 Kings chapter 25. It goes on to say, brothers and sisters, and all the army of the Chaldeans that were with the captain of the guard broke down the walls of Jerusalem round about, and the residue of the people that were left in the city, and those that fell away, that fell to the king of Babylon, and a residue of multitude, did Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carry away captive. The captain of the guard left the poorest of the land to be vine dressers and husbandmen. So, brothers and sisters, what was the point, if we will, in going over those particular matters? And that is this. We care to show the evidence of what we're talking about scripturally, going from part, and part for edification purposes. If there's any questions or comments, please feel free to type it into the chat. Again, this is on Mordecai Yeshaya Torah Lessons, as well as Mordecai Yeshaya History Lessons, and the Facebook page, Yeshaya Author Danite. Thank you for that. It says there that the the God left the poorest of the land to be vine dressers and husbandmen. So if the poor people of the Israelites were left, who were taken? The rich, the elites, brothers and sisters, they that were what you would call more fortunate, they who were, in today's terminology, getting it, as the saying goes. So what happened to the poor people that were left in the land, brothers and sisters? How did they fend for themselves? When Jeremiah chapter 34 speaks upon the matter of the people that were in the land, in the cities that were left after the Assyrians and the Babylonians, what they did to the northern and southern kingdom. You read about how they were hunger. You read about how they had nothing to eat, brothers and sisters. Remember, the siege that was made upon the northern kingdom was for 3 years in the 8th century BCE. What we're seeing here in 2 Kings 25 is in the 6th century BCE. So unless, brothers and sisters, in 200 years, from the fall of the northern kingdom in 722 BCE to the fall of the southern kingdom in 586 BCE, how were the people able to sit there and get food and vegetation and grow things? With all of the political stuff going on with the Assyrians falling to Babylon, with the Egyptians being defeated by the Babylonians, brothers and sisters, when you got the Chaldeans that were taking root of the role of leadership in the land of Babylon, all of those political things that was going on, where were the children of Israel left to sit there and be vibrant, to be wealthy, to do the best for themselves? That's what we want to point out in that case. What happened with the poor people of the land? Did you know that there are people in the land of Israel today that stated, and this was pointed out on the channel, that they are the people who were there from the time of Joshua the son of Nun? There's a video about that I'm going to put in the description of this for reference purposes. So that way you can sit there and see what people are saying themselves and not just something that's just conjured up because nobody has something to talk about. We've been teaching for some time, brothers and sisters, that the people referred to as African American, West Indian, and so forth are the true house of Israel. Did you know that there are people in the land of the East that also lay claim to saying such? These are things, again, we care to point out for reference purposes. You understand? So let's look. Assyria fell. Babylon is now in power. Egypt, already from Dynasty 25, had Nubians that were ruling on the Egyptian throne. So now by the time Dynasty 25 ends and you get to Dynasty 26, that's the last great dynasty of the people of the native Egyptian stock ruling in their own land. So when you hear the terminology that the world is given to the hand of Babylon, the world that they're talking about is the world that was around in their day and time in this case. Their world, if you will. So these are things, again, we care to bring out for reference purposes. In the Atlantic slave trade, you know they sat there and took your mathematicians, your doctors, your lawyers, your judges, your kings, your princes. You know what was left after the depopulation of what happened in Western Africa in the 19th century? Africa became what you call underdeveloped. Did you know that? Africa became what you call today underdeveloped by leaving the poor people there, the peasants of the society there in that particular case. That's what happened with the people of the land of Israel. That's why we want to point this out when it says there that the captain of the guard left the poorest of the land to be vine dressers and husbandmen. What is the difference between being vine dressers and husbandmen and the sharecroppers that Black people say that we come from in the South? Please talk to me, family. What is the difference between our people talking about in the North Carolina, we was sharecroppers, and that's how Judah and Israel was left? Okay, dressed as a husband, there's no difference between doing that and being a sharecropper. What's the difference? See, when we start talking about making the connections, what happened with history is not always going to be a happy matter in that case. So these are things, again, we care to point out for reference purposes. All right. Any questions or comments, please feel free to type it into the chat. Thank you for that, brothers and sisters. Ezekiel chapter 39, verse 21 to 29. And I will set my glory among the nations, and all the nations shall see my judgment that I have executed, and my hand that I have laid upon them, meaning upon Israel. So the house of Israel shall know that I am the Lord their God from that day and forward. And the nations shall know that the house of Israel went into captivity for their iniquity, because they broke faith with me, and I hid my face from them. So, brothers and sisters, what are we pointing out? Leviticus chapter 26 is what it says in part that the Most High will hide his face. No, pardon me. Leviticus 26 is where it says that the Most High's face will be against. Face in Hebrew, in this case, is panim, which means presence. So in one part, I must stand corrected. In Leviticus 26, it says the Most High will set his face against you. And here it said that the Most High hid his face. What happened between the timing of the judges and what happened to the timing of the fall of Persia regarding the Israelites is what happens when the Most High hid his face from the Israelites. Problems, calamity, distress. That's what happened, brothers and sisters. You understand? These are things, again, brothers and sisters, we care to point out for reference purposes. It goes on to say this. So I gave them into the hand of their adversaries, and they fell, all of them, by the sword, according to their uncleanness and according to their transgressions that I unto them, and I hid my face from them. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, now will I bring back the captivity of Jacob, and have compassion upon the whole house of Israel. And I will be jealous for my holy name, and they shall bear their shame, and all their breach of faith which they have committed against me, when they shall dwell safely in their land, and none shall make them afraid. Brothers and sisters, we've been pointing out for some time about Israel shall not be made afraid when they go home. So the people who's in the home there, are they made afraid? Let's continue. When I have brought them back from the peoples and gathered them out of their enemies' lands. So when you see a brother put on Facebook, for those who did see, why do you have a chart, or who commissioned you to sit there and make a chart in that case, is what a brother in part is asking. Because if this right here distinctly says that the Most High will do what? Bring them back from the peoples. If your chart is not based on where Israel scattered, whether you're saying it's only in the east, whether you're saying it's only in the west, then that's not the chart that we need to have. We have the scriptures already that speaks about who's going to do it, the Most High. This is not to say that there are not some good points, for the lack of a better term, that people have regarding the charts that circulate. But what we do care to point out, brothers and sisters, what we do sit there and care to bring out for reference purposes is this. When we get out of the enemy's land and sanctified in them inside many nations, and they shall know that I am the Lord God, and that I cause them to captivity among the nations. So if your history as a people doesn't, sad to say, include a captivity, you're not from the 12 tribes. That's what it is in that particular case. Let's go on, brothers and sisters. And I have gathered them unto their own land, and I will leave none of them any more there. Neither will I hide my face any more from them, for I have poured out my spirit upon the house of Israel, saith the Lord God. Brothers and sisters, this is not to sit there and be disrespectful, offensive, or anything. Several people, more than one, more than two or so, have asked me about a recent video that I did, in which I was speaking upon, don't invite me, I'm not interested in going to your camp. Why? I'm a state, for those who do ask that. That's on the channel, More Yeshaya Torah Lessons, right? Why did I sit there and do that video? And how does that tie into what we're talking about here? When do you have time to reach out to the people if your door is shut on Shabbat and everybody's keeping their knowledge indoors? Yeah, we do the live thing sometimes on the internet, but back in the 60s, there was no internet. 70s, no internet. 80s, no internet. And sometimes Israelites are Oh, you can't get my tape, whether cassette or VHS. Oh, no, you can't sit there and get that. No, don't bring that out. And so forth and so on. So the knowledge of Israel was not being pushed even as hard as it is now. When my family came into this understanding in the 1980s, there was, as I pointed out in that video, standing room only. If you are bringing back the people who've been there for over 20, 30, some 40 years, some 50 years, then how are you going to reach people like my mother that was in her 30s when she came into this? My mother came into this understanding, may she rest in peace, as a single woman. And as I pointed out earlier in the presentation, and being thankful to the Most High in the spirit of presentation and teaching, the person who brought my mother into this way of life on a human level never disrespected her. Because I did ask that. Brothers and sisters, I did sit there and I asked that. I was like, did he ever? Nope. He had the utmost respect. And that's the kind of leaders that we as a people need to be, brothers and sisters. You see, so people do talk about you behind your back. I don't know if one of my Hebrew teachers who helped bring my mother into this way of life in 1982 is listening. But yeah, I did ask mommy, did you, if you ever do hear this, did you ever disrespect? And we all know what we mean by grown men and women with that. And my mother avouched, never did he come at me sideways. Never did he come at me disrespectful. So yeah, people going to talk. That's a part of life. But brothers and sisters, there is no need, when the Most High said that he's going to bring Israel together, to sit there and wonder why some people may not want to go to a camp. Bring the people in that was new, like when my family was new in that particular case. We need to get this word out there to the people, brothers and sisters, and give an honor and praise to the Most High, the Creator, the Maker of heaven and earth. The kings, the kings, the kings. The vision of Isaiah, the son of Amos, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem, in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. Isaiah chapter 1. The words of Jeremiah, the son of Hilkiah, to whom the word of the Lord came in the days of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Judah. Jeremiah 1. In the fifth day of the month, which is the 5th year of King Jehoiakim's captivity, the word of the Lord, Yah, came expressly to Ezekiel the priest in the land of the Chaldeans by the river Chebar. Ezekiel chapter 1. So what are we pointing out? Chapter 1. It gives you the time frame in which these prophets begin to prophesy. The kings that are mentioned in this case. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. The kings, the kings, the kings. The Assyrian and Babylonian kings mention several of the kings of Israel and Judah in their records. Lists of those kings are as follows: Ahab, Omri, Jehu, Menachem, Hoshea, Pekah, Ahaz, Jehoiakim, and Manasseh. The Assyrian king Shalmaneser III of the 9th century BCE mentions Ahab or Ahab, Ahab, king of Israel, in a war that the Bible does not even record. A reference comes from the book The Ancient Near East in Text and Pictures by James Pritchard. Excerpt from the book Egypt Talk and Writing. So in the book, now playing salesman now, in the book Egypt Talk and Writing, I cite the book The Ancient Near East in Text and Pictures. And in it, brothers and sisters, it talks about how the kings of Assyria and Babylon mention kings of the Israelites. And the stories that they say of the Israelites and the stories the Israelites say of them don't contradict. It talks about one defeating the other. So if the Israelite story talks about them losing, it's kind of hard to sit there and think that they made it up to write themselves into history, or that they plagiarized it. One of the most silliest things, and I say this in no disrespect, that I saw on Facebook, and this is from someone who sometimes try to come against Israelites, is the Egyptian army was one of the first, and it was made to not destroy, but to protect. I'm going to show you how silly that sounds. You have an army that is made to protect, but not to destroy. What is your white blood cells in your body for? Correct me if I'm wrong. They're made from the bone marrow. I could stand to be corrected. But your white blood cells fight off infections. It destroys infections. It's the army of the body. It's one of the things of the immune system. How do you have an army, my brother, elder, or anyone else, that is made, as you put online, to protect but not to destroy. In order to protect the sheep, you got to sit there and destroy the wolf. In order to protect the cub, you got to destroy the hyena. So there's no such thing, brothers and sisters, as we're going to have an army that's going to be there to what? Protect, not to destroy. That is romanticism, and you're the one who's really the religious, not those who cite the Bible, because that doesn't make any sense to have an army that doesn't destroy but just protects. Because in order to protect, something has to be destroyed, because there will be no need for protection from destruction. Now that is romanticism that's been presented. We're going to talk about that one day in the future. So just want to point this out for reference purposes as we continue on with the timing allotted. The kings, the kings, the kings. The word of Yah that came unto Hosea, the son of Be'eri, in the days of Uzziah, Jotam, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. And in the days of Jeroboam, the son of Joash, king of Israel, Hosea 1. The word of Yah that came to Joel, that which the palmer worm hath left, hath the locust eaten. And that which the locust hath left, hath the cankerworm eaten. And that which the cankerworm hath left, hath the caterpillar eaten. Joel chapter 1. Do you know what that's talking about in Joel 1? It is talking about, brothers and sisters, that the palmer worm hath locust eaten. The palmer worm, one king of Assyria, hath the locust eaten. Second king of Assyria. That was the locust hath left, hath the cankerworm eaten. Third king of Assyria. And that cankerworm hath left, hath the caterpillar eaten. Fourth king of Assyria. We're talking in timeline about who? Tiglath-Pileser, Shalmaneser, Sargon, Sennacherib, all mentioned in the scriptures. Those what we're talking about there, so we can get a time frame and a timeline of who we're talking about in this particular case. The words of Amos, who was among the herdsmen of Tekoa, which he saw concerning Israel in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah, and in the days of Jeroboam, the son of Joash, king of Israel. So we can see when there was still two kingdoms, Israel and Judah, and the prophets that were living during that time. Why do we go over this? We're going to show why with the timing allotted. The kings, the kings. The vision of Obadiah, thus saith the Lord God concerning Edom. Neither shouldst thou have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction. Obadiah 1. When was the destruction of the people of Judah? We're not talking about destruction off of the face of the earth. We're talking about as a kingdom and as a standing army. In a time when Babylon that we just read of in the book of Kings. Where was Edom? Rejoicing. So what time frame is Obadiah living in and talking about is after the destruction of the kingdom of Judah. While we go over that, let's get into this. Now, the word of Yah came unto Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, he restored the border of Israel from the entrance of Hamath unto the sea of the Arabah, according to the word of Yah, the God of Israel, which he spoke by the hand of his servant Jonah, the son of Amittai, the prophet, who was of Agath-Hepher. We cited two portions, Jonah 1 and 2 Kings 14. Jonah the prophet, the one who went into the boat to try to not have to speak to the Assyrians, was also a prophet among the Israelites. And the time frame is during the time of Jeroboam II, who ruled in the northern kingdom of Israel. The word of the Lord, Yah, that came to Micah the Morashite in the days of Jotam, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, which he saw concerning Samaria, which is capital of the northern kingdom, and Jerusalem. Micah chapter 1. Micah or Micaiah the prophet. Did you know that Micah the prophet was mentioned during the time of Jeremiah by others in the book of Jeremiah? Two things to point out. One, Israel. It's one thing to love history and point things out. It's another thing when, and I hate to have to say it, loving history myself, you're so much into it, you forget the future. See, Jeremiah didn't live in the days of Micah. And Micah did not live in the days, brothers and sisters, of Jonah. They lived in different time frames. So knowing the times and the places in which you are is very important. Let's continue with the timing allotted. Thank you for that. Them kings. The burden of Nineveh, the book of the vision of Nahum, the El Koshite, Nahum chapter 1. The burden of Habakkuk, the prophet, which Habakkuk the prophet did see. For lo, I raise up the Chaldeans, that bitter and impious nation, that march through the breadth of the earth to possess dwelling places that are not theirs. What are we talking about? The Chaldean army that we've been talking about from 2 Kings chapter 25 is where Nebuchadnezzar come from. And they went over and inhabited in Egypt. They went over and inhabited in Hamath. They went over and inhabited where Israel was. They went over and inhabited where Assyria was. So we begin to see how the history ties into this. Brothers and sisters, the word of Yah came to Zephaniah, the son of Cushi. I meant to put in the days of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Judah. So Zephaniah and Jeremiah were contemporary prophets. Did you know that by the church? Excuse me. These are things that we care to bring out for reference purposes. The kings. In the second year of Darius the king, in the 6th month, in the 1st day of the month, came the word of Yah by Haggai the prophet unto Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, saying, Haggai chapter 1. In the 8th month, in the 2nd year of Darius, came the word of Yah to Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, the son of Edo, the prophet, saying, Zechariah 1. What do we see, brothers and sisters, the difference between Haggai and Zechariah, and when we go in Habakkuk, Zephaniah, when we go to Micah, when we go into Jonah, into Obadiah, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Isaiah? What do we see as a difference, brothers and sisters? Darius the king, not an Israelite. This Darius the king is a relative, brothers and sisters, of Cyrus. Stand to be corrected, let me know. This Darius was a ruler in Egypt in Dynasty 27. See, we spoke earlier about Dynasty 25 with So, king of Egypt. We spoke also, brothers and sisters, about Dynasty 26. So now when the brother stated earlier, giving honor to the Most High, that Dynasty 26 was the last great Egyptian native empire or dynasty in their own land, after Dynasty 26, Egypt is given into the hand of the Persians. So now by the time the timeline goes into where the Israelites are in this, you had the prophet Haggai and you had the prophet Zechariah. Let's continue, brothers and sisters, in this. Note, regnal dating. A regnal year is a year in the reign of a sovereign, from the Latin regnum, meaning kingdom rule. Sovereign, a supreme ruler, especially a monarch. Now let's look. Asa, 10th century BCE, name means physician. Hazael, 9th century BCE, name means God sees. Pekah, pronounced as Pequak, 8th century BCE, name means watchfulness. Tiglath-Pileser, 8th century BCE. His name is more so pronounced as Tekuti Ipil Isera, meaning my trust is in the son of their God Ashur. Okay? Ahaz, 8th century BCE. Name means he seized. Hoshea, 8th century BCE. Name means salvation. Elah, 8th century BCE. Name means oak. Shalmaneser, 8th century BCE. His name is more so pronounced as Shulman Asorid. And what that means in their language is Shulman is first. So, king of Egypt, 8th century BCE, Shabaka, as we spoke about. Nebuchadnezzar, more so pronounced as Nabu Kadur Osur, which means Nabu, protect your son. That's one of their gods, Nabu. We don't call upon that. We just want to emphasize that for reference purposes. Zedekiah, 7th and 6th century BCE. Name means God is my righteousness. Brothers and sisters, these names that we've gone over, from Asa all the way down to Zedekiah, were some of the names of the people that we were dealing with in this presentation. Just want to, in closing out, give a little insight about whom we've been talking about. Brothers and sisters, I'm going to leave this here for those who are interested. You can screenshot it if you have the ability. And I asked you all to sit there and take notes. Get your pens, your pads, your paper, and take notes. Comment, like, and share. To the people who are doing so, thank you for that. This again is on the channels. More Yeshaya Torah lessons, more Yeshaya history lessons, and brothers and sisters, the Facebook page, Yeshaya Author Danite. Let's continue and close out, family. Conclusion and speech, enhancing your presentation. I am open, brothers and sisters, to constructive criticism. My number, 908-587-4841, is across the screen for those who are interested. I have not been as diligent, I must say, in getting presentations done in a timely manner that I have sent the link out to people that follow the channel. For that, I apologize. This month, so-called February, said to be Black History Month, a lot of personal things have been going on in my life. And I say, as I did before, giving honor and praise unto the Most High, things regarding a matter of business that I don't care to get into. So some things happen to actually been postponed, as in the lessons and so forth. And for those who have subscribed to the channel, supported the brother, text the brother, find out how's everything going, I definitely do appreciate that. I've had situations with my telephone company or the company that I was dealing with. I recently had to sit there and relocate brothers and sisters regarding residents, not to get too personal and things of that kind of nature, and other matters that caused me to be busier than expected. But I give due benevolence and honor and thanks unto the Most High for strength and courage to sit there and persevere. And that is part of being Yisrael. One who perseveres, the Most High will persevere. He will persevere with the Most High. That is essentially the meaning of Yisrael. And I give thanks unto the Most High for people in my life who have been a support and encouragement and so forth. And do know and understand that nobody is perfect. Some of the things that a brother, like anyone else, not to take it off me for the moment, is dealt with, and some of it is self-induced. So just want to sit there and emphasize that I appreciate the love, the support, and the respect. I can be reached again by WhatsApp or by other means, regular calling or text at 908-587-4841. That's what I have to say concerning that. There will be a part 2 to this, brothers and sisters, and this intended will be on the other platforms as time goes on, called More Yeshaya Hebrew Lessons, More Yeshaya Old Testament, and More Yeshaya History Lessons 2. I will sit there and decide when is the best time for that in that particular case. For those who are on the platforms here, More Yeshaya Torah Lessons or More Yeshaya History Lessons, and the Facebook page, Yeshaya Author Danite, I am going to, brothers and sisters, do a presentation, most high willing, tomorrow in the morning on why, again, we believe as we believe. Some may agree with it, some may not, but just want to point it out for reference purposes. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator, the Maker of heaven and earth, Thank you all for who are in attendance. May the Most High be with us, strengthen us, guide us, and protect us from danger seen and unseen. Give it thanks unto Yah and to Yah only. Hallelujah. Shalom.